sitting across from the table to me, James Rico, this fine man right here. Wait, do something.
Yo.
Yes. James Rico, filmmaker, huge family, Kansas boy, talentless DP. We will soon find out if that is true. Morgan Cooper, to his right, director of photography, storyteller, KC native. So as I shared with you gentlemen, I'm just big fans of, I'm just huge fans of bringing people together who I think just are awesome people and can learn a lot from each other and can share experiences and really have the opportunity to bounce off one another. Sometimes we bring people together who that works really well, and other times where it's kind of stale, and I think you guys will bounce off each other really well. The second part is just people who are pushing a narrative, whether you're in KC as often or as frequently or not, just trying to help push KC forward, create more opportunities for KC, and really move KC forward in that regard. So I'll digress and just say, man, like what part of your, I ask both of you, like do you have a point in your childhood, or early in your life, that has impacted you to say, I know that I want to go on and do something, or did that not happen until more adulthood later when like real life started to weigh down on you? Like, do you recall when that moment was?
You got it? Sure. I feel like I was never really connected. I think I was connected to cinema, like, and film and stuff, from my grandma, actually, because she had a lot of VHS tapes and we would go over there. Like, I reflect on it because I didn't immediately know that, you know. But like most recently, I've been reflecting upon my life and like figuring out where stuff has come from and like where my inspiration comes from. As you get older in filmmaking and more, and you test this, you try to figure out the reasons why you're doing something, and purpose, inspiration, where it's coming from.
Like the big picture of like putting the technical together, or
yeah, because
the story
for filmmakers, for
tell?
us, like we want to tell true stories, and so like they always say, tell a story that you understand and feel and could like actually speak the truth. And so I just reflect back on stuff, and I recall as early as my we'd always watch cartoons. Most people watch cartoons, so I was very influenced on comedy. I watched Jim Carrey and all these ridiculous Saturday Night Lives early on, and then Mad TV, and I watched tons of TV, you know what I mean? And so it wasn't really cinema because my parents couldn't afford to take us to film all the time, like movies. And I'll go to my grandma's, and she had Three Stooges and like all, Looney Tune tapes and stuff, and we'd watch them. Always go to Blockbuster. You know, I was really into video games too, so I love storytelling video games like Resident Evil and like horror stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what started pushing me there, like entertainment, but you know,
without really realizing it at
without
the time.
knowing it, yeah.
And did you live at your grandmother's? Like,
no, we just visited very often because my dad's very family oriented, and so.
Who was in like the immediate family where you lived?
Where I lived,
yeah.
I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters, and so we grew up in a really big family. And my dad and my mom worked extremely hard to get us something. You know, we didn't have everything. We'd have like 1 pair of shoes a year, maybe. You know, only reason I got shoes, I played sports so I could get shoes. Like that was the only reason. You know what I mean? Because like they wouldn't buy me shoes.
There's no other reason otherwise.
Yeah, you don't get shoes if you don't play sports.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of where our family looked like. You know, we weren't like on the streets by any means, but we definitely had to be conservative with like the spending of the money and stuff that. And we lose cable a lot. We didn't have cable sometimes, so then that's when VHSs came into play. You know? But honestly, I think sports. After that, I realized in high school that I loved sports a lot, and so I like sports photography, and ESPN was huge, and I always wanted to be ESPN editor. I think that's where it started.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to what James said, I don't know if there was an exact moment where it was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know what a cinematographer was growing up. You know, I always thought like the director was the person that shot the films and, you know, made all of the visual decisions. So you didn't know like the below the line roles of a film set. But kind of like what James said, I just feel like there's a lot of seeds that were planted, you know, unknowingly. So
is it the same where you've been able to like try to uncover them as you've gotten older?
Oh yeah. These days I really tap into a lot of inspiration of things that I grew up listening to, things that I grew up watching. I think the film Juice with Tupac, directed by Ernest Dickerson, I think that was like the first film that really like changed my life of like, wow, like I see technique in this, like there's something more.
How old were you when you watched it?
I think A little bit too young, to be honest.
We were all a little too young watching
10.
those. Okay.
Yeah, 10.
But you remember looking at it with an eye like this was creatively crafted
yeah.
and put together and
Exactly, the long takes, you know, some of the angles that they were using that made you feel a type of way.
Yeah.
So just the seeds that were planted, I'd say.
When did that start to become like application? Like the first piece, like what was like the first thing you guys did? Whether it be like the first time you picked up a camera, the first time you just sketched out on a paper what a shot would look like. Like what was the first thing where you're like, I'm gonna give this a shot and see what comes out?
You know, probably some no budget music video when I had my T2i like 7 years ago. To be honest, I can't tell you a specific moment, but you know, with this craft, it's something that is just like a day by day growth. You know, there is no like, I'd say like wow moment. You just kind of wake up and one day you're not terrible. In a way.
Like, wait, I'm kind of good at this.
Yeah, it's like, but you
don't
know.
remember exactly when that moment happened, but I'm curious, is it like you got to a point where you were like, I like what I'm doing and I'm getting better, or there was some like external validation, whether it be someone wanting to pay you or people or reviews or whatever the case, where you're like, oh damn, I guess I am kind of good at this.
The beginning part, I'll go answer that question first. The application, it was a high school thing. We had highlight films for our football team. I was on the team, and so I loved watching them. And I was like, whoa, like they can make these in Kansas, you know, kind of thing. That was the first realization that it wasn't always ESPN.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was like, someone's doing this here. Like, who's doing this? And they were kind of bad. They were filmed really poorly, and my dad was a photographer young, and so he had a VHS camera. And he filmed on the sidelines, and he was really good. Like, he could for some reason do better than the people that were making it.
Running along the sideline.
Well, no, he was just like, he was just really good, you know. And so he didn't know how to edit though, and I obviously I didn't either. I was like 16, and they took us into a real editing bay, and the editor was like, well, it's going to be really expensive.
At your high school? Or?
No, it was some local company in Wichita where I'm from. And the editor said, well, to make it cheaper, I'll let you guys play around. Like, this is how to do it. I don't know why he left us alone, but he left us alone in his editing bay for hours. And I just had fun and played with it. And I was like, whoa, like I could actually do this kind of thing. And from then on, that was like the beginning of my editing as an editor first.
What was the first like gig you got to do the thing you were passionate about? Like, do you remember that? The first time someone said, hey, I'll pay you to go and do this?
But I'd say the first gig, quote unquote, I had, it was for a magician. Okay. And it was just for a magician years ago. Was he a good magician, or was it like, he's actually really good.
Were you recording, like, I'm about to be a witness or whatever?
No, he was really, really like an amazing magician. And I forgot how I got the gig. But, you know, it was for $100, and, you know, I told him
Did you set the price, or did he?
Oh, I set the price.
That's what I'm always curious about. Like, how do you price, like when you're crafting your creative work and it's time to make a pitch for how much you're worth, like how do you figure out that number?
It's a lot different now.
Yeah,
at this level, it's a lot different.
Right.
But at the time, you know, I didn't know, you know, I was just trying to pay my rent. And so, you know, I asked a few buddies in town who've got DSLRs as well to let me borrow their DSLRs so I can do like a 3-camera shoot. I did it all alone. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Just as they're on stands or something?
Oh yeah, they're on tripods. And you know, the thing about those DSLRs is they got, well, at least the ones I was using had 12-minute recording limits. And so I was trying to...
Did you have a timer? Like any way of like...
You know, I think I tried to manage it somehow. It didn't work though, you know, so I'm like in the back of this theater running around looking stupid, making way too much ruckus. You know, I've got insufficient media, insufficient batteries. I'm just like, I really, really mess up. One of the cameras, you know, I think the media ran out halfway through the show, so one of my angles was shot, you know, after 30 minutes or whatever. So I did a terrible job. The cut turned out terrible. I was so embarrassed. But I learned something from that shoot, and I learned a few things. One, you know, I just gave him the product for free. And I said, look, I messed up, you know, and I'm sorry. Right. And because of that, you know, he gave me another chance, and I did better next time, and continued to work with him for, you know, like 5 or 6 more shows, and made some money. So that's when I really just learned integrity is the most important thing.
The foundation of it.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all make mistakes, but it's important to make them right and identify the mistake and then move forward. And the second thing I learned is that you can't do this job alone. And so on the, you know, the little shoots that we had later on, you know, I brought someone on tell me I was dating a girl at the time, and she came on and helped me out. And so just having one extra hand, it's amazing how much you
Doubles
say,
everything,
hey,
man.
hold this.
Right.
Like how much bandwidth that frees up in your mind. So anyway, that was my first gig.
Dope.
So.
Rico, what about you, man? Like, do you remember first thing you got paid to do?
I think I remember the first
Or the first memorable one? You know?
the first one where I felt like, oh shit, someone's paying me more than like a few $100s, you know, that kind of thing. It was, again, a music video, super local thing, and I think I charged them $900 or something, and I was like, I can't believe they're paying me $900. It's
So you're just waiting to see.
I just like, are you gonna take that? Yes. You know, it's like, but before then, it's like I did a ton of free work for like friends, and I, like Morgan was saying, like I didn't have as much foresight to know when I fucked up or not, you know, but I would make sure I was trying to fix it, so I would do reshoots instead, you know, like, oh man, I need to do this again, type of thing. So, but I wouldn't charge them for the reshooting, you know, I'd just be like, let's go pick up a shot, you know. So I just try to fix the mistake by just redoing it again. But his is an event, right? You were doing an event, yeah. So it's totally different.
There's
hey, can you get all those people to come back? You know, it's
I
like,
can come back. Just refund their tickets.
yeah. But I think it's a strong humbleness of like you got to put in a lot of free work.
That was gonna be my question. That was my first one. Is like, because this has come up a lot on the show actually, of like this idea of like, you know, earn your stripes, and that you know, do you do free work or to try to build your resume, or do you take smaller checks or smaller amounts of money to also feed yourself? Or like there's this belief that if you price your point at any point lower than what you believe it is, it's a lot harder to get it up than to just do the free work until you've built a resume and you can put your price point at that certain point. Like, how have you went about like trying to figure out like, man, what is my work worth?
I mean, I think it's, especially starting out, it's a balance. You know, you're kind of towing that line for so long and, you know, competing on price rather than quality. And then you hit a certain point where you realize it's like, in order to grow, your work has to grow. I always say, if you're good at what you do, the rest will just fall in line. And so if that means, you know, shooting that really amazing spec project where you've got resources that you're able to gather, you've got a director with a strong vision, you're going to shoot this thing that, you know, you could call it $100,000 price tag, and like it looks, you know, up to that level, though it's spec. You're going to start attracting that clientele. You're going to start attracting those agencies with those accounts. And so, you know, for a long time, it is towing that line when, like you said, when you've got to pay rent, you know, that wedding all of a sudden seems really attractive.
You'll take credit.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I think we all reach a certain point where it's, you know, time to grow and time to...
More so you're saying it's more so about persisting through that moment rather than getting hung up on exactly how to price that out. It's like doing the work long enough to where you actually get to a point where it's good quality and good work. And
yeah, I'd say so. And also just remembering to get better. Like that's really important. It's not just about surviving. It's about just really, really becoming better at your craft. And the rest, I feel like, falls into place and has fallen into place for me.
What does improvement look like for you, Rico? Like, how do you know you're getting better?
You see it, like you just see it. You know, you could tell, like, oh shit, like you start getting really like once my thing for people was like, so many people get caught up in the technical so early on because you have to learn the technical to actually reproduce it over and over and over again, and then learn your mistake from the technical aspect and fix it. Like, well, why, if you talk camera, why are my ratios messed up in shadows versus highlights, and why can't I see everything in your dynamic range and all this other extra crap? But once you learn it, I think you got to understand that you have to be an artist first and think like an artist and a storyteller. So those tools, I always refer to it as like a mechanic because I grew up around my dad who was a mechanic and my grandfather or my uncle. And so it's a mechanic has a ton of tools in his garage. Right. And he knows how to, he doesn't use every single one to change an engine, right?
Yeah.
Or to put a tire on. It's a certain tool that gets you there. And this is very similar to filmmaking. You have all these amazing tools and all these amazing cameras and different lenses and stuff like that. And it's overwhelming, but you have to understand that it has to start with the story first. So once you can stop thinking about it and it's instinctual and you're like going with gut instincts, you know that you're getting better because you have to say, okay, now I have to white balance. Now I have to, you know, get my shutter right. I got to get my f-stop right.
Second nature to the story you're trying to tell.
It's very early on that you're thinking about these things, and then eventually you have to learn lighting, which is extremely difficult, and then you have to learn set design, wardrobe, like script, like how to write a script. Is it a good script, bad script? Like all these things.
Like all that plays in.
Yeah. And then, so if you could start forgetting about all that technical stuff, then you know you're getting better because it's just instincts.
You decide what to do first, Morgan. Like whether it's one single set and you show up, or whether it's just like you finish a project, right, and then kind of just open door to what may be next. How do you decide what's the next thing to do or the first thing you do?
Yeah, I mean, on a project, my process always starts on paper through previsualization. You know, at the type of work I do, I can't just show up and light. You know, there's weeks and weeks of planning, pre-visualization, lighting renders, conversations with Gaffer, art department, countless conversations with the director to really hone in on the look. And
all before you
all
shoot
before we
a
step
scene.
on set.
Yeah,
You know, I always say like a good 80% of it's done before I even step on set, and at that point it's just execution. You know, there's always those shoots if it's if it's more of like a lifestyle commercial.
Yeah, you kind of
Where there is some jazz involved, and I never want it to become too sterile, but at the same time it's like I always want to step on set being the most prepared person there. And through there, like James said, it's instinctual. At a certain point, everybody's looking to you for the answers, especially as a cinematographer. It's like everybody looks to you. It's all filtered through your lens. And so you've got to be the most prepared. And at that point, you can really free yourself up to just enjoy it and, introduce the jazz into the process. If you're doing a lot of on-location work, there's going to be a lot of curveballs, And at the same time, some of those curveballs are fun.
Yeah,
and sometimes
you learn to take them.
Well, not only that, I think through some of those curveballs, like really great art happens, something that, like you said, you plan, but at the same time, it's like when you hit record, that plan might be out the window all of a sudden. If you're shooting on a stage, it's different, because it's a completely controlled environment. And so that's kind of what I'm saying, where a lot of the prep goes into. But, like James was saying, with on location, via sound, sometimes the image looks great, your location's great, but the sound isn't, isn't going to allow you to shoot there. So yeah,
someone didn't pay attention to the fact that a train comes by every 10 minutes.
That's
like,
right. Yeah, that's
who
right.
didn't know this? Like, whose job was this? Who scouted this?
Who didn't stay around long enough?
Right, exactly.
What does this? So what does like if there's a majority of what your like individual sets look like we'll describe what those sets would be. If you do a majority of your work, like you said, mainly music videos, narratives, like what does a majority of your sets look like? And how do they differentiate? Because you pointed out that maybe commercials might be different than music videos.
What do you mean, like the people or?
Yeah, like the layout, what's involved, maybe how you scout something. It seems like you're noting like some sets might be much more still, while others involve a lot.
I don't do much set. I do a lot of on location stuff still. Like the sets that I'll go on be like green screen or white studio or black, all black or something like that. And then maybe a few times we'll have actual sets. But the commercial for his commercial world, that sets are probably more defined, like. And a lot of your planning and stuff, and so they have set designers often. But a lot of mine are like I just recently moved to LA, so I work with a lot of youth still, like probably mid-20s, and the oldest person on set's probably like 38 or 40 or something like that. But it ranges. I try to make sure that there's a person for every department there. Like we need to make sure there's a makeup artist, a hairstylist. If there is if we get lucky enough to have a set designer, that person is just looking at the image to make sure the right colors are in there. That's it. Like they're not actually sometimes bringing a bunch of stuff in. It's just like someone's there attentive to the image in the background. And then we'll get like a gaffing team, electric or lighting team. And we have a slew of people in the camera department, AD, director, producers, reps from wherever company or label that you're working with.
Have you figured out who you've needed on set just as each project has grown, or do you research?
I think you can make some really dope shit with like 5 people if they know what they're doing.
It's not so much the position of it; it's just like, do you have people who are willing to do whatever it takes?
If you're a jack of all trades, like people that grew up independently shooting by themselves, and then you all of a sudden identify, what was I doing? Oh shit, I was actually doing wardrobe, and I was doing hair, and I was doing makeup, but I didn't know I was doing that,
Then you become a lot more flexible.
Yeah, then you could be flexible. You could jump around positions very easily. And that's my experience. I've understood a lot of the positions, not unknowingly I experienced them, and then now I identify what I was doing.
Start to reveal, okay. What about you, Boeing? Are there specific positions that I need this position on set with most projects, or how do you figure out who you really need around?
Yeah, I mean, I always say like the crew that you see on set is dependent on what the creative calls for. you know, and so if we're on a stage and, you know, it's a pretty big lighting package, the lighting render is pretty big. You know, usually it's called 3 and 3. So that's basically in G&E, you know, 3 on the electric side, 3 on the grip side.
All lighting?
All lighting, yeah. So your G&E, grip and electric. Or if it's, you know, a little bit of a smaller package, small lighting render, you can get away with 2 and 2. But always a gaffer, always a key grip, always a first AC, second AC. And if the job is bigger, camera, PA, you know, then you get into like best boys and all that stuff. But yeah, it's all dependent on what the creative calls for. You know, I'm the type of DP, I don't like people just standing around just to be there. Like, it's important that everybody there is contributing.
What piece of advice would you give them to just try to make some momentum? If they're just kind of running around, they have a passion to be creative, they're always with a camera, you know, but they haven't found that direction. Would it be to focus,
I just get on
build
set.
your network?
Honestly, just get on a set, like as many sets as you can, like as many free ones as you can, because everyone's always looking for PAs. But just maybe
What's a PA?
Just a production assistant. So sometimes they could be considered super low, but maybe they could be a camera PA, like a camera department PA, or a lighting PA. Like they're in that department, really specified, you know. And depending on where they live, like the people shooting those things might not know that they could put PAs in certain departments. So smaller things like 5 people, right? A 5-person crew, you'll find 5 to 8 people you'll find often. But I would say just get on as many sets as you can, and you start seeing stuff.
Exposure and awareness.
Yeah, because you don't, maybe you don't know.
How do you guys like discover, like, do you have any like really practical things that you do to discover more of yourself or your culture, or like where you're at in terms of like time and place? Do you spend time thinking about those things or applying those things? Whether it's simply as like culture and being a person of color, or like, man, just in the history of time, like what an incredible time we're at, you know, and trying to like make the most of that. Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I love history. I feel like it seeps in my work subconsciously a lot with the way I just capture faces and skin. Like all those are, you know, kind of burn into my brain when I frame a shot. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I always say I try to consume content that's nurturing. So I try to stay away from negativity, and I try not to pollute my mind with just too much content in general. So I try to just take a few things and study those things. Right now, for the past few months, I've been really studying. I've studied his work before, but really getting into his Roy De Carava's work. He's
Roy
photographer.
De Robsworth?
Roy De Carava.
Carava.
Yeah, he's a photographer who captured street photography in Harlem way before like Faces in New York and stuff like that. It was ever a thing, yeah. He was doing it, and so just looking at.
Was his work like appreciated then, or was it one of those things like later people were like, oh, this guy was?
Yeah, it was, but you know, the thing I love about Roy's work is like, you know, he made such a simple, you know, a simple moment so powerful and say so much, and so. When I look at photographers' work that I really admire, that always seeps in my work of saying, like, how can I make my frame say more? You know, how can it's not all about the flashy camera move, like, how can I make this moment say more and express myself, you know, through this moment in a way that's more than just this light looks good, right? And so his work is really outstanding. And once again, just like him capturing Harlem, he could have captured all these different places, but, you know, back then, before it was trendy, before it was hip, he was capturing these black faces. And I love jazz. My dad really pushed jazz on me and my family growing up.
Like here in Kansas City?
Yeah, here in Kansas City.
Super local. Did you guys go around a lot to certain places in Kansas City, or
no?
Just
We were too young to go in the car.
Yeah.
He always played this Miles Davis Coltrane. I still remember in Grandview, there's this street where you cross the tracks on Main Street in Grandview. On the way to school, he would play this Miles Davis record, and like I remember it. Just every time I drive by there, like I remember those times.
I forever try to search for a culture that I identify with, because I don't think I identify with my Hispanic culture as much as I should. I think it's because I don't speak Spanish, and so forever I've had like this weird identity thing in my personal self of like I identify with urban culture the most, but you know, I don't have any black in me. Like there's nothing in me, but I identify with it for some reason. And so eventually I'm like, you know, I'm not black, I'm Mexican, but I don't identify with Hispanics. I don't really identify with the white culture either. But I think eventually I just think I love people. Like I love everyone so much. And so I try to just understand. I think first as a filmmaker, you need to understand perspective and that everybody has their own version of a story. And that could really start opening up your ideas of like how you approach a story. Who's it coming from? Like a little kid, or is it coming from the grandma? You know what I mean? With a story about family and like how it's shaped. You know, or is it coming from a dog's perspective? Like you want to be really crazy, and it's like the dog of the family.
They're
you
making
know,
movies like that though. Man.
You know, so
like
I think my influence is.
So you're saying it's more so like not heavily being associated to anything, that it gave you this ability to just look at human beings.
Exactly.
Human beings.
Yeah. That's. I mean, more or less as I travel more, and I'm like, man, I can't even. Like, I just came from France, and I don't speak French, and I was on set trying to talk to people that speak French only, and I'm like, okay, I need you guys to move over here, and this is what's gonna happen. They look at me like I don't know what I'm saying. I go, okay, and so I have to like act it out, you know, and do all these things, and so I'm communicating with a whole nother part of the world that I've never had to be. And then somehow they're able to identify that I love and I care for them, and then they show it back. They show mutual respect back. And so I'm like, wow, the humans can, it's just so powerful what we could do and how we could change people's lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you seen, in the last chance I had the opportunity to hear you talk a bit, you talked a lot about being a person of color moving into a space that doesn't have a lot of people of color. How, and I don't know how directly to tie it to his point, but I feel like people know you're black when they see you, you know? So it's like, how do you intentionally introduce that and then try to then just break those walls down and spread love and share, or does it not play a factor in your world of work?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in my space, it's mostly the way I guess I approach sharing my culture is more just through the work, you know, how the way I carry myself, the people I hire on my crews. All of that really represents, you know, my meta, you know, where I'm at this point in my life as a black man in America, you know, and it's really important in my space, you know, because most of my counterparts are white and older than me. And so it's really important to maintain a really high level of quality control and be the most prepared person there. And so I feel like it's more of showing, you know,
then telling like let that
exactly. You know, I'm not a big talker. You know, I just like to let the work talk. So.
What keeps you going at this point? Like, is it one thing you're holding on to? Is it just the desire to get better? Like, because from just what I can tell and pick up, like, way beyond the average person putting in 8 hours a day, right, of work. Like, why keep pushing so hard towards something?
I am super motivational in terms of my social media and how I talk and how I post.
You've been going in on Facebook lately.
Man, it's like, because I think it's insane how motivation can change someone's life completely. And I talk about it because I come again from a family of such a large family where we didn't have everything. I had to pay for my own college. I'm still in debt. You know, it's like I had to do everything I could to get where I'm at, and I didn't let my circumstance define me as a person ever. You know, and even now, like if someone doesn't like me, okay, cool. Like there's billions of people in the world. Not everyone's gonna like you. You know, so I think it's the
that's
fact.
a hard thing to get over though. Like that.
Yo, shout out NPR.
Shout out NPR. That's a sign of a sponsorship right there.
So I think it's the distance that I've came in my life and where I started.
So it looked like where as a kid to now.
Yeah, exactly. I changed my life when I was 26, 27. So I started late. You know,
what do you
I'm
mean
34
you changed
now.
your life?
Like I decided to be something that I didn't think I could be.
Like
you know,
a moment. I remember you talking about that too. Like there was this. I think you said you were at home maybe. And
Yeah, he was onto something.
yeah, I want you to
Keep
finish,
going.
but I want to hear. I want to hear yours too.
It's again just reiterating. I decided to be something I didn't think I could be. Being from Kansas, thinking that you could make it in LA or go be this filmmaker that could win an Oscar. I tell myself out loud, one day my goal is I will be on that stage and I'm gonna fucking win an Oscar. Like I don't care, because the level that it takes to get there means that your concentration has to be on point every single day for the rest of your life to achieve that goal. Because the greatest people in the world have achieved it, and then like even the people, even the greatest still don't achieve it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that level of focus has to be insane. You know, like so I see where I've got myself now because I was just focused so hard. Everyone that's motivational tells you.
What was the hardest thing to let go of to remain that focused?
Family, friends, like free time.
Just the life you've lived.
Yeah, like you just have to understand that you're gonna have to give up a big part of your life to get it, you know? So it's either you want to spend time with family and friends and develop that, or you're gonna have a career. People say you could balance it. I think it's extremely difficult. My wife, I don't live with her for 2 years, you know, she lives here and I live in LA. And that's just the struggle. That's the part of it. And so I'm willing to sacrifice that. But we find a way to make it work, right? Same thing with family. I find ways to make it work. They understand. I have to tell them, yo, this is my goal.
Right.
You know, if they didn't know my goal, they wouldn't respect it as much.
Yeah.
You know, they'd be like, why doesn't he ever come around?
Right.
But I let them know that's what I'm trying to do. I want to move my parents to LA. That's a big goal, you know. I want to house them. And if I can't, at least I'm working hard to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's just that overwhelming desire and love for something that I'm like, whoa, I really do love this. What else do I got to do? Like, I just want to do this the rest of my life. I ain't got nothing else to do.
So I did cut
You know?
you at 26. Like what happened?
I don't know. I just realized I was
You're like, where am
there's
I
got to
going
be
with
something
this?
more
Where am
than
I
what I'm
going here?
doing. You know, there's got to be, because I was just so depressed and like didn't like what I was doing. I did video, but I was like, man, this is I don't want to do news, and I'm not really that great at
Formal.
being in corporate worlds and like stuff like that. And I knew that I had a good eye. Everyone was like, you have a good eye, you have a good eye. But I just like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? And so it started because I did a music video for Sigma,
Right.
you know, Phi Beta Sigma. And that sparked it. I was like, whoa, I could actually like do something. It was a terrible video, but
No, it was
at the
good.
time, like it looks cool. T3I, you know, like
No.
just like racking the focus constantly. You're like, man, this is dope, you know?
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, maybe I could do something, you know? So it just takes one opportunity, and then all of a sudden you just keep doing it and you keep getting better and better and better. And I look back at my work years ago and I'm like, wow, I was like, even though it's not like what I do now, you could see the love that I was trying to create, you know?
But at the heart of it was this realization that like enough is enough.
Like, dude, I could do this, you know? And even more now, every single day, I'm like, I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm living the life that most people want to live. Even if I don't make as much money as I want to make, I'm still doing amazing.
Still doing the thing.
Dude, I'm about to go to Bangladesh for like 2 months, and it's like,
Right. How? You know, like.
I was scared of it, and then I realized.
Did that moment as it happened?
No, when they asked, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I want to go over there, you know, like that's terrifying, you know? But I was like, wait a minute.
This is what
That's
it's all
dope,
about. Right.
you know?
Yeah, this is what it's
What
all
if I
about.
die doing
Risk,
this?
right?
Fuck
The
it.
risk is.
I think like that sometimes. I'm like, could I be someone that would die doing what I love? And I think I could. You know?
Well, you're gonna die anyways.
Right. So like, I'm gonna try. I just keep thinking I'm gonna get malaria or something, and I'm just like,
You're gonna die anyways. But what
Right.
about you, man? Like that you. I remember you talking about, but expand on that moment, man. Like what happened for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the turning point for my career was 3 years ago. That's when the money started getting more serious and the job started getting more serious. But at the same time, I think my value system, I've been kind of rethinking my value system the past year with the types of jobs I'm taking. And because you get to a certain point, especially people who buy gear, and you know, it's kind of this gear accumulation, especially here for Kansas City work, because there aren't nearly as many rental houses, so it makes sense to own camera buys and all that stuff. And so the past year, I've just been really thinking like more into my why and my purpose. And I love cinematography. I love what I do. It's my passion, but this isn't the only thing I love. And so I think of ways to consistently build on my why. It's like, yes, I enjoy creating beautiful images, but it's like, why? It's like, just so people can say, oh, Morgan Cooper's a great DP. It's like, what is that? You know, that's not, if I die and the only thing they say about me is I was a great DP, I didn't live. You know, it's like, I want to encourage, I want to mentor, I want to inspire, you know, using my platform. You know, like James said, we're very fortunate. You know, we're 0.000% .0001% of the people in the world who can say we make good livings being creative.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, we're not doctors, we're not heart surgeons, we're not really doing really important stuff.
Right.
We're being creative, you know what I mean? And so to keep things in perspective, it's like, I'm very, very fortunate. Yes, I've worked hard for it. Yes, I've earned it. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to squander it. I don't want to just use it on Morgan Cooper. I want to use it to, you know, lift up a kid that looks like me, who never thought he could be a DP or a technician in, you know, a very technical field. And so, yeah, all I have to say is, like, it's really important to stay focused and grounded in what really matters, I feel.
Do you know definitively what that why is for you?
Yeah, I can say I do, and it's to encourage and enrich the lives of the next generation of particularly young Black people of color storytellers, you know, who have a voice and they have a story and they just don't really know where to start.
Or the place that, yeah.
So I hope to, you know, whether it's just, you know, representation is really important, just to show, hey, this is possible. You know, so I think that can be in small and big ways. Eventually, I plan to, you know, take it to a bigger level and, you know, maybe start a foundation one day, or, you know, go into these schools and start a mentorship program with other DPs. And I plan to take it further, but I think it's more important just to be there to say, hey, you can do it.
Right. I've been realizing the power of representation lately, that it's huge. Like, and I think because I don't know if this plays out in your guys' world as much as it does in mine, because I'm in a lot of, my background is in education, but I work a lot with systems and institutions, and it's like we're always doing this work of like trying to change an institution, trying to change a system, which is just like, this is America, you know. I'm a realist, to some degree, and it's like, man, I want there to be 10,000 more, I don't know, people of color in finance, right? But it's like, I'm gonna die before that happens, but if I am a person of color in finance, that representation, like, I love that Tupac quote, that you might not change the world, but you might spark the mind that will. And I've been trying to live on that more, because it can, you know, I don't know if you've, maybe it's like that idea of like, speak for all people of color, right? Wherever you're at, you're put in a position where you're like, okay, tell us what it's like. I've been told, like, tell us what it's like being Black in America. Like, there's so many different, but like that, to say, I'll tell you what it's like being Nicholas. And then, you know, and trying to let that representation be enough instead of like this overwhelming feeling.
That's right. And
yeah.
I think you really make a good point of like you said, we're not here to speak for every single person, but, you know, we are here to say, hey, like, we're here.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
And
let me ask the other side of it then. Do you, each of you, it may be different, like, do you have a point where that was acknowledged and like you said, okay, how am I going to deal with this situation? Like,
what do you mean?
being a person of color. Like, there's so many times I can think I've been somewhere and it's publicly acknowledged that I'm a person of color. And it's like, okay, I got one or two ways I'm going to deal with this, you know? Have you had a moment like that?
Well, yeah, I have. I guess we can just keep it career focused. But yeah, in my career, this was about 4.5 years ago. And it was when I started shooting commercials. And I had a reel that was pretty good for the time. And a producer who I was working with shared it with an agency and a director. And they really liked the reel, but they didn't know what I looked like. And so they brought me in this meeting, and, you know, a table full of white people, you know, 40, 50-year-old white people, and the director. And so I walk in, and I remember, like, literally through the glass, there's like the door and then the glass,
and they
saw me, the director, and I could just see it right away where they were like, I didn't know he was Black.
Yeah.
You know, I could just literally tell, like, right away.
The energy in the room shifted.
Well, the conversation was over before I stepped in the room. I could just tell, you know, like, they weren't going to trust they weren't going to trust the visual.
As you thought of, did you have like the foresight to think like, okay, how I address this is going to be like the battle of building my career, or was it just a moment in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't naive. Like, you know, I've always been very conscious of who I am and what I look like. You know, my dad was always, you know, teaching us history. Like, we're very we know our history in my family. But at the same time, I guess maybe at the time I thought like, if the work is good enough,
it'll
what
has
does
that been
it matter?
the case?
Yeah, I'd say definitely in the past 3 years, once like I kind of went to the next level with my work, like at that point, then it's like,
this guy's
it's undeniably
talented.
good. Yeah, being undeniably good, I think is important.
Facts. Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of a pivotal moment where I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, this is this is real.
This is the landscape. Yeah,
for sure. Rico,
I don't have any moments like that because they don't know what I am. They're like, I think he's white because he talks like he's kind of white, but then he looks kind of dark. He's getting tan. Is he tan? Is he from LA? Like, where's he from? Like, I don't really know.
Maybe he's just in the sun a lot.
But no, I mean, like, it's funny because when I talk to Hispanics, mainly is when I feel it the most. It's like I'll talk to a lot of Puerto Ricans or Cubans, filmmakers, and they'll try to speak Spanish to me, and I can't speak Spanish. And immediately, I always get shit for not being able to speak Spanish, like all the time. It's ridiculous. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
But so hopefully in a year I could actually speak it. Like I studied it in college and stuff, but I think I feel it the most for my own kind, and that's why I say I can never identify because they make fun of me so much in their language. You know, so that I can't hear it. And it's sad, you know. It's like, bro, like
that's interesting.
I'm still Mexican, like 100% Mexican. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing else.
And there's nothing like that can like strip you of your culture, your identity, because that's who you are. So
so I mean, I love Hispanic culture and I love everything about it. It's just the people themselves they don't embrace people like gringos.
That's so true.
You know what I mean?
That's so true. That like we
Are you
often
Latino,
feel like
Nick?
I'm
Or-
half black, half white. I don't know if again, it's just speaking for an individual, but also as a person of color, like we battle. I feel like we fight against our own people as much as we fight against like I don't know, a dominant culture. Like black people fight black people just as much as we're trying to build up out of a system. And it's like maybe it's like the institutional side of me, man. It's like what has to happen? What will it take? Even if it's over a long period of time for black people of color to realize like we have to do this together.
Right. I think you can't change that. I think it's impossible because so many people are brought up. The way you're brought up in the world is how you are as a person. So if it's the adults having children that are negative and they're giving them negative thoughts, of course they're gonna do that. It takes a moment in their life to change themselves, and it's impossible to do that. It's impossible. You know, so you just have to be okay with the fact that people are going to not like you,
no matter
of
what
your
they
own
look like.
kind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you let that negativity of like your own kinds bring you down, then obviously it's going to keep you in a negative space. And like Morgan was talking about, being positive is so important in your head, especially when you're trying to do something really big. You know, I called them out the last time that had happened to me. I was listening to trap music and I was just like trapping on my phone. I was like packing the G&E truck. I'm just like having a good time. And then they came up and they started making fun of me because that's all I listened to. Like, that's all you listen to is trap music. I was like, well, I grew up on trap music. It's like I like trap music. You know, I like other music. I like all music, but I predominantly listen to that.
I was right.
You know, and so then they go, you need to learn more Mexican, like more Hispanic music, like reggaeton and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, I like it. I was like, look, I don't ever make fun of you for listening to what you listen to ever. And they started, because they were speaking in Spanish. And I was like, I don't make fun of you guys. Why do you have to make fun of me? You know, like I don't make fun of you for not listening to trap. You know what I mean? Like, this is what's popular for my culture, or like the culture that I like the most.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's fair. That's something that, to be just kind of vulnerable, like that's probably one of the biggest things I've had to fight back against. I think because my profession started in education and in a space where there's agencies that start with the tagline, one day every human being will have, you know, like that's a heavy load to lift. And so like, as you talk about being raised up professionally, like that's the training you get in your mind is like, you have to go out there and fight for every human being. And it's like, you realize, and I feel like people of color are often put on the front lines of those missions because I feel like we're willing to put more on the table and sacrifice more because we feel that guilt. Like you said, like why, like 0.0001, like why am I in a position, how did I end up here? Why, that must mean that I have to go and contribute and give back. And I'm learning to do that in a scaffolded way. Like, just impact
it doesn't have to be,
lives.
and that's exactly it. We all have to do our part. And, you know, kind of going back to what you're saying about like, you know, people, you know, groups who attack other people in their groups, whether it's the Latino community, the Black community, people, it's kind of like people affect people that they're around. And so like, Black communities, if, Kansas City, let's talk Kansas City, for example, the east side of Kansas City, got a lot of family lives over there. They're in these neighborhoods where they don't have hope. You know what I mean? There's lack of hope, even just like aesthetically in the neighborhoods, the city isn't putting much. So it's like when you have these people who feel very desperate and they feel a lot of pain and there's trauma involved and stuff like that, they hurt their people they're around. And so with that, making you feel guilty because of this and that, it's
almost a way of like
hurt people. Hurt people.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to counteract that with
just love.
Exactly. Just saying like, hey man, like, you can do whatever you want. Once again, that just goes back to encouraging kids. It all starts with kids and letting them know, hey, like, you can literally do whatever you want. You're not bound to your environment. I think that's a lie. Like, product your environment, sure, but like, I don't think we're bound to that where this is where you're from, this is where you have to stay, this is where your mind has to be. We can do so much more.
I started an agency, Rise. So I started this agency after college. It was called Rise, stood for Relentlessly, Intensely Superseding Expectations. And the baseline, every time I said that.
Say it one more time.
I know, relentlessly, intensely superseding expectations. And so when I would tell people that, like, that it was never expected that I was going to say that.
Minds are through the roof, like, what?
Like, whoa.
Who's this kid?
I feel elevated already. But the tagline was that you're not going to be a product of your environment, but a product of your expectation.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you rise to the expectation set, like, that's why, like, particularly for young Black men, to derail all the way this way, but like having a strong role model, like, you will rise. Like, you always see people grow up and you're like, what? And then you meet their daddy or their uncle or someone that like raised them, and you're like, oh, it makes a lot of sense now. And you flip that around to your point, you're like, damn, that's why a lot of people running around crazy. It's because that mentorship and that role model, having someone to help guide them along the way, is so crucial to who they become. Yeah.
That's facts.
One piece of advice that you would leave behind to improve the experiences of tomorrow's generation. Could be a big idea, small idea, something super practical. What would you say?
I'd say find a way to be patient. Everything is about timing. Don't get ahead of yourself. Really enjoy the moment. Celebrate the small victories, but at the same time, get back up the next day ready to work. So patience and due timing. Don't get ahead of yourself. I think that's not just for the next generation, but for everyone. It's just like to really do your best to be present in your personal life and your work life.
Patience is a really good one for sure. Like,
it's just hard as hell to do.
Yeah,
it's very hard.
It's so hard to do.
We're all still working on it.
Right.
It's.
I think for me, it just to build on top of it, because I think those are extremely important. When he said, I think it's just believing that there's a possibility, believing in yourself, believing without a doubt that you can do something, and you're gonna fail, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be painful. People are gonna look down at you. People are gonna deny you. Dude, I don't even realize how many people turn me down. You know what I mean?
Because
like,
you just focus
because I just keep going. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think about it. I'm like, all right, cool. Go to the next person. Like, that's how I move. And so I don't let the negative failure. I don't let the negativity affect me. I think for many years, and I just now realize like how many times I was turned down. Yeah. And I think it was just because I believed that there was something greater.
That wasn't the right one.
Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, even more now, it's like, shit. Like Morgan says, eventually you get to a point where like, you're good, and you push yourself to get there. So you believed in yourself enough, no matter who doesn't believe in you. Your parents will definitely not believe in you first. It's funny.
It's always the closest hilarious. Circle of.
Like they totally don't believe in you.
Yeah.
Unknowingly, they don't know that they're doing negative things to you.
Do you think it's that fear though?
It's a fear. They put fear on top of you because they're afraid that you're gonna fail and you're gonna be in a bad place. That's why family doesn't agree. They
want you to take the safest, most stable, predictable.
In relationships, it's the same thing. If you're dating whoever you're dating, they might not believe in you, But if they do, amazing. But it's likely that they're not going to. Your friends won't believe you. you know, until you can actually prove something. And then they're like, oh wait, he was serious, you know, like, oh shit.
Right,
And then all of a sudden they start coming into your.
How do you handle? That's the thing. How do you handle that? Like, is it open arms? Like, you know, or
No, I mean,
it's tough.
like
it's tough.
it is tough to like say, hey, I just say appreciate it, you know, and that's all. Because like they weren't there when I was struggling, but you know, they see it.
When we shooting in the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, remember when I asked you to come help me and you didn't want to help me? You know? So I think it's just believing